This is going to be a tutorial on the topic of audio management using a virtual audio mixer, which I believe will be quite useful for those looking into practicing or improving on their audio, such as streamers and video creators. The tutorial here is about 20 minutes long with some demonstrations, and I've thrown in some tips from my own experience with streaming, which I believe would be helpful for those who are either just getting started or are looking to making their streaming and recording process more efficient. Just for background, I usually do streams with a friend over Discord using the screen share, which allows them to be able to react to whatever was going on in the game in real time without that restriction of being right next to me. Kind of like, say, Game Grumps or the like, but they are sitting halfway across the world and somehow still have the same time zone as me. Funny how that works out. Quite early on, I realised that only having the one audio track was quite restrictive, and needless to say, it made my life more difficult when trying to make these streams into videos. You can only do so much with the one audio track. So if something went wrong, which is more than likely when you do it live, yeah, good luck trying to edit that. More often than not, the game audio would be too loud and I would be very quiet, and it ends up being kinda painful to watch. What I've done is I've gotten a 2-minute clip from one of my previous streams that will serve as an example of what we're trying to achieve here.
Damn. Yeah, Jamie needs to do better mix-ups when it comes to Player Boy.
I think you guys pick up Player Boy.
Nice! Okay, that's a good entry. Anyway, so it's oh, the cancels! Oh, that's insane! Oh, can he come back though? Can he come back? Can he come back? Can he come back? Oh!
So soon!
Look at that life bar!
There is no
That is insane!
Come on, there is no life bar, man. Oh,
The head took it for the team, like.
Put that.
yeah.
No, don't worry, this bot's getting uploaded to the channel. Y'all be able to see it later. I mean, feel free to
Thank
look
God,
at it.
right, thank God you can't die when the head gets hit at last health.
I think you guys pick up Player Boy.
Nice! Okay, that's a good entry. Oh, that's insane! Oh, can he come back though? Can he come back? Can he come back? Can he come back?
So soon!
Oh.
Look at that life bar!
Oh.
That is insane!
Come on, there is no life bar, man. Oh,
The head took it for the team, like. Thank God, right, thank God you can't die when the head gets hit at last health. I'm going to show you how to achieve this with OBS, VoiceMeeter, the virtual audio cables and the sound settings from Windows 10. We can find everything we need on the website vbaudio.com. Here we can find VoiceMeeter as well as all the virtual audio cables that we will need. Here we can also find VoiceMeeter Banana and VoiceMeeter Potato. They are essentially the same program, with Potato having more inputs than Banana. Potato has 5 inputs available while Banana has 3. I originally used Banana when I started doing this a few years ago, and then I moved over to Potato for the added freedom. Something you only need to take note is that these programs are donationware. VoiceMeeter Banana is essentially free, no strings attached. While Potato has a sort of free trial that lasts 30 days, but it's very lenient about that trial. In fact, it doesn't ask for your card details when you first start using it, And after the 30 days is over, it allows you to still continue using it with the occasional reminder that you should maybe pay for it if you so choose. Ever used Rinra in your life, you'll know what I mean by that. Just like Rinra, you would be free to use Potato even after the 30-day period. It just regularly asks if you can drop some cash over to him after then. The price tag for Potato isn't that bad either, as you can buy the program for at least €10 or dollars if you select the cheapest option seen here. If you feel the need to support them even further than the $10 or euros, the option is there for you. We'll also need the virtual audio cables from the same website. You can get a free cable at the top of the page, which will suit your needs if you are just looking for separating Discord as a separate audio track. If one virtual audio cable is not enough, however, if you scroll down you'll find more. They will be available to purchase for as little as €5 or dollars. And to install them, all you need to do is be sure to run the installer in administrator mode and reboot the computer afterward, just to be on the safe side. Again, if you're looking for more freedom with the audio tracks when editing, I'd buy the collection of cables. In total, combining the cost of VoiceMeeter Potato, this would only cost you around €20 or dollars. Now really, you can do this for as little as $5 or euros, just buying one set of the virtual audio cables you need, and downloading the free cable that you can get that is available, and downloading VoiceMeeter Banana instead of Potato. It is really up to you. I've just used Potato because I've got more freedom if I need it. And I suppose if you're going to take streaming and recording more seriously, then maybe the investment would be worth it to you. Also for this, I'm going to assume that you're running on Windows 10. A more recent discovery, of mine anyway, is that Windows 10 has an option at its sound settings at the very bottom called App Volume Device Preferences. Keep that handy for the time being, because we are going to have to use this when we get our cables up and running. I know this looks kinda scary if you're not knowledgeable in audio stuff, but it's easy enough to understand once you get your head around it. We'll begin by connecting all the virtual audio cables into the hardware inputs. You simply do that by left-clicking Select Input Device and selecting the virtual audio cable you previously installed. This one being WDM Cable A. You can rename each of these hardware inputs by right-clicking on its name and typing in what you want. In my system, I have all the virtual audio cables obtained from vbaudio.com, including the free cable, and I've named these columns after what the cable is in alphabetical order and what they're supposed to channel. So A is Discord, B is the desktop, D is all sorts of media, and E is OBS, which I'll go back to later. We'll be going back to VoiceMeeter in a moment. What we want to do now is dictate what program channels to which audio cable. At the advanced sound options of Windows 10, you can find at the very bottom App Volume Device Preferences. Over here you can change the default output and input, and more importantly, what each individual program will broadcast to. Because we have installed these cables, they will show up on the App Volume Device Preferences, allowing us to change the output to something that is linked up to VoiceMeeter. Here I've changed the default sound output to cable B. The reason why I've done this is mainly to guarantee that whatever game or emulator or anything that I end up installing, I know for a fact it will go through and be seen in VoiceMeeter and OBS without me having to manually change it in App Volume Device Preferences, mainly because it's so out of the way. Once you tweak the output on App Volume Device Preferences, you don't really need to go back to it unless you want to readjust something. So this is kind of like a fire and forget method I'm doing here, just to not have to worry about it too much. This is also where you select the cable for separate the audio from a media source like your internet browser, your YouTube, your Spotify, anything along those lines, by giving it a separate cable. Over here I've put my media cable as D to separate it from like the main default cable which all the games would go. While it wouldn't make much of a difference, leave the output seen here for Discord as default, because we will change it on the actual program itself. I'd assume that would be the same case with all the other kind of voice over IP systems like TeamSpeak or something along those lines. Connecting the virtual cable to Discord is quite simple. All you need to do is go into your settings by clicking on the cogwheel, finding voice and video, and then changing your output device to the cable you want to associate Discord with in VoiceMeeter. That way, anyone who speaks through Discord to you is going to end up being in that separate voice track. Back to VoiceMeeter, now we need to determine how we're going to hear that audio in the first place. Hardware out at the top right of the window is where the sound would come from, such as the USB device that I have, which is really my mixing desk, but don't worry about that. This can all be done with something as simple as a pair of headphones. I've connected my headphones into the front headphone port of my computer. This will bring up Realtek HD Audio Manager, and I've selected it for A2. When I go into A2 and look for it, it will come up as Realtek High Definition Audio, or whatever kind of sound program you have in your computer which deals with that sort of thing. It could show up as something like an external device, like a sound blaster, sound card for example. As long as you can find it on hardware out, you can have VoiceMeeter dictate what sound goes to which device, allowing you to channel certain audio through one output but not the other. So now that we've got the hardware output determined, now we need the sound to actually go through. In order to do this, in each of the columns that represent the virtual cables, you have these switches that say like A1, A2, B1, yada yada. It's next to the volume slider. These are basically your switches, your funnels, which determines if you hear the audio from that pipe or not. So when I select A2 in this column in YTA Music, everything from that virtual cable will go through to my headphones in the front of the computer. Click on that again to disable it and it gets grayed out. Now I can't hear from that source. The audio will still technically go through, however. If I can't hear them go through VoiceMeeter, which brings them through to my speakers or headphones. This is the reason why I can still output all those sounds through OBS, even if you don't hear them. It'll be useful later if you're trying to screen share a console game. And as it turns out, as I speak to you in the future, with VoiceMeeter, you can bring down the volume slider to the point where you can't hear anything. And because the sound is still going through, it actually doesn't get affected. So what you'll have to do is maybe adjust it on OBS, or maybe adjust it on the volume mixer. So that might be useful if on your end the game's too loud, but you still need it loud enough for the stream to pick up, or something along those lines. Just another thing to maybe consider with VoiceMeeter, which I find is quite helpful. It's just another discovery I've found when making this video. So by now, we should have everything sorted out when it comes to VoiceMeeter and the virtual audio cables, and we've determined which program goes to which audio cable. Now we need to go to OBS and do the separate track thing. So let's go toward OBS now. Over here you can see I've purposely structured everything so I know where everything is now. Sound output would be where all the virtual cables are, which are connected to VoiceMeeter. You can select which device you want, and the input would be the microphone you're using for streaming and recording. You might ask why I have two microphones in this folder, one with the added precaution. I've got a reason for this. I have a habit of muting myself with a hotkey on my keyboard very regularly, and during a recording a long time ago, I muted myself for one reason or another, and I came back and somehow forgot to unmute myself, and basically killed the entire playthrough because the thing doesn't have any, it was all autosaves. I didn't want this happening again, so I have a separate microphone which isn't affected by the mute button and is always recording as a separate track. Bear in mind that this is using the same microphone as my main, so if I ever forget to unmute myself for any reason during a recording or a stream, it's not the end of the world, because I've still got the precautionary voice track which would record my voice regardless if I press my mute key or not. It's a lifesaver. When you add, you can also find the folder for groups, and you can also change the colour of the window by right clicking on the source, and you can select set colour as whatever. I've just got mine pretty and colour coordinated because funsies. Go to your settings, file settings, and go to output, and make sure that the recording has all the audio tracks selected, 1 to 6, and you decide a audio track that is exclusively for streaming. This audio track will be what is heard through the broadcast. And before I forget, in order to determine which of the track gets what cable, what we need to do is on the main OBS window, you go to your audio mixer, right click and go into advanced audio properties. Here you'll have the audio mixer, and you can change the volume and the balance and sync offset. What we're interested in right now is the tracks. So you can make it so each of these sound sources has a separate audio track. So for track 1, that would be our desktop, or where all our sound for games is by default, like I explained earlier, the fire and forget method. Track 1 will also be our capture card, because chances are I wouldn't have a console game and a PC game running at the same time. The second track would be my microphone. The third track would be the precautionary microphone, like I explained earlier as well. Track 4 would be Discord or whatever kind of voice over IP system you have, because usually we have Discord being used at the same time as whatever stream and recording I do. Track 5 would be all kinds of media, like YouTube, Spotify, and whatever else you'd use that you might want to keep separate when it comes to the final product being released on like YouTube or whatever, to avoid content ID and such. And for track 6, that is my determined track for streaming. So because I selected in the output streaming audio track 6, that is the audio track that goes through to the broadcast. Right, so for track 6 we have the desktop default audio cable, got Discord, voice over IP, we have our main microphone so we can speak to the viewers and that, we have the media track, and we have the capture card track when that's applicable. This is my system, and I'm fairly sure you're going to have your own method of madness to play about with. I'm just using mine as example. You'll know your audio setup more than I would. Also, just as a wee tip, I record in MKV format instead of MP4. If OBS for some reason was to crash, if it was recording in MP4, the file gets corrupted and nobody's happy. If you record in MKV, it doesn't corrupt when OBS crashes. And as much as it is a bit of a pain in the backside to have to go out of your way after streaming and recording to convert, or in this case remux, the video into a usable format for the likes of Vegas or whatever, converting it from MKV to MP4, potentially a big file because you've been streaming or recording for so long, it's that peace of mind that I find is very important. Those kind of safety nets, the kind of risk reduction that will allow you to stay motivated when it comes to content creation. Because what if something catastrophic happens with your recording or whatever? You might not feel motivated to continue. And content creation has enough traps to begin with that negating some of that risk, either by recording in a different format or having the option to have separate audio tracks for separate things, well, it will just make our lives easier. Hence, we're kind of blocking off some of those traps we could potentially fall down in. And this in turn will give you the motivation to continue and hopefully making something out of this.